Do, do, do. Live again. Hello. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Tuesday after Labor Day, when nobody got to grill because they had to attend their classes at John Carroll. Boo, John Carroll. Not giving everybody a day to grill on one of the worst flooding days of the year. Now, if you're watching this much later because your power got knocked out by flooding, that's cool. You'll have an opportunity to make up your work if that's your excuse. Don't worry about that. But it looks like most of us in Northeast Ohio have power back again after that possibly 1 in 100 year storm or something like that. It was apparently a pretty big one, pretty substantial. Yes, Merry Tuesday to all. I'll give everybody a minute to come on in here. How was sending an email to a stranger for the first time? Not the first time in your life you've ever sent a stranger an email, but the first time in this class. And also in senior design, right? Someone commented on YouTube that they got a nice new pond in their backyard. Yep. Yeah, I got a nice new pond instead of a backyard. Just swap them out. Yeah, the frogs are happy. Someone commented that they now know how to write emails. Probably not. No. And if we're being honest, it will take years before you feel comfortable writing emails. And I promise you this, if in 3 years, I mean, even do this, go ahead, save your inbox today. In 3 years, when you go back to it, or let's even say 5, if you look at the emails you were sending out today, you're going to face palm so hard and go, oh man, I was a frickin' idiot. I know, I sure do. And that, by the way, goes basically every 3 years until you reach some sort of email sending nirvana. Someone commented that it's existentially terrifying. I'm assuming you mean sending email, and yeah, it's existentially terrifying to send emails to strangers, especially strangers where you need something from them. So consider this good practice, because a lot of you are going to be applying for jobs soon, almost all of you, and one of the big ones is sending emails to complete strangers looking to get some job interview related thing out of them. Almost better than applying at companies is just emailing their recruiters or emailing people there who might be able to get you a job. That might be more likely to land you a job than applying for some, depending on how skilled you are at it. And this is a theme I want to reiterate, that writing will get you much further than other kinds of skill. It's a huge force multiplier for talent. I take myself as an example. I'm a mediocre programmer and let's call it a mediocre instructor too. But I can write a mean email. I think I've done pretty well just based on that talent. But no, seriously, the writing talent for me far outstrips any of my other skills. I think any professional success I have is probably based on writing and communication skill rather than anything else where I'm objectively not that great. So consider that writing gets you further than anything else. And also think about, you probably can't be the best programmer in your office. Just objectively, you're probably not that good. There's way too many people who are way too into programming, and just in any given environment, there's always going to be that opportunity for them to hire somebody more skilled. But here's an easy category. I wouldn't say easy, but here's a great category to be successful in. The best programmer / writer at your organization. Being known as the best of those two combined skills makes you a very valuable person indeed. So maybe you're not going to be the best programmer, developer, debugger, architect, whatever, but if you're the best X / writer, that is something. You can be known as that too. And that's job security and all the other things that could come with being the best at something. So now that you've already given it a shot, speaking to a stranger, cold call, first we're going to seriously overanalyze what you did for giggles. So there will be an in-class assignment after this short lecture where we overanalyze your cold email to a stranger because that's interesting. Hopefully you already had a little bit of peer review on your existing meeting recommendation. Now, a lot of people didn't get the hint, I think. I had that assignment to prep you for making a meeting with the client, right? So that's basically what you're doing. You're reaching out to a stranger and asking them for a meeting. And some of you went kind of a different approach and had it be sort of informational or asking them for info, just from what I see in your Discord, working on it. And that's fine, but ultimately you are going to have to meet with those guys, right? So keep that in mind. Some of the info from these slides comes from what I saw you working on in Discord. Not personally attacking anybody, but I have parodied some of your content in a humorous way. So if you see some of your content reflected here, it's not a dig on you, it's just to hammer in the point for everybody else. So number one, this is something that a lot of people, I don't know, maybe they never master it. Maybe they only master it once it gets reflected back onto them, or maybe they make it work for their whole career. But sometimes you should talk instead of writing. And another addendum to that is some people are really bad at talking. So I put as the first bullet point here that most people are fine at speaking. That's not necessarily true of everybody. Some people are terrible at speaking. If you're terrible at speaking, then go ahead and communicate in email. People will eventually figure it out and accommodate you. They might not accommodate you right out the door, but after a couple meetings where everything's a complete bust, I think people will get the idea that you're not a great conversationalist and you need to write your words out to get them out. That's cool. But most people are much better at talking than they are at writing, or at least they're not very good at writing. And a lot of people aren't great at reading either, or they have the ability to read and choose not to. And that makes email a very tough form of communication. Even those who are great at reading will often skim or ignore stuff. So if you have something to discuss and you want people to pay attention and you want it to be discussed well, you're probably going to have to make a meeting to do it. Most people have more trouble articulating their words in writing than they do when they speak. Most people have more trouble articulating their point. And that's true even of professionals like software developers, because as you know, being as you're almost done with your degrees, you had a whole lot of software development training and you've been speaking your whole life. But this is probably your first technical writing class, and possibly all you've had before this is years of high school humdrudgery where you learn to write 5-paragraph essays but not actually talk to people. And so it's not unexpected for your talents to be balanced far away from being able to articulate your point well to people in writing. That's not a problem. Just keep in mind that a lot of people are in that boat, and you should make meetings to discuss information that people find difficult to articulate, which you might not find difficult to articulate, and other people still might. And also, if you get to a certain point of length, people aren't going to read it. So if you need it to be heard, make sure it's heard in a setting where not paying attention or pretending they can't hear you is considered rude, and most people probably won't do that to you. They'll at least give you the impression of pretending that they hear you, right? You're not going to get ignored in conversation, probably. And especially computer science can be a thorny thing. Sometimes something is really hard to articulate in spoken word. Like if you're talking about a code problem, honestly, probably better sometimes to deal with email, right? Because you can type out the issue. On the other hand, an architectural problem might be way easier to whiteboard or sketch than it is to articulate in written word. So something to think about. The problem with writing too in conversation is that it's one-sided. I say everything I'm going to say, I write it all out, and then you have to read it, and then you write everything you're going to say, and then I have to read it. It can get unbalanced pretty quick. You can write way more than me, or you can read way less than me, and that can offset the balance. We can start monologuing for too long, and that offsets the balance. If both of our sections become too long, that's a barrier to communication for both of us. A quick rapport and a lot of back and forth is better suited to discussion. So messaging apps like Discord are great for that as well. So let's talk about introducing yourself a little more because this is hard. You don't want to introduce yourself like a Pokemon. When Pikachu introduces himself to other Pokemon, how does he introduce himself? How does Pikachu introduce himself? It's spoiled there already, but if you know the answer in chat, does Pikachu say, "Hello, my name is Pikachu"? No, he says, "Pikachu," which is the same thing as saying, "Hello, my name is Pikachu." That's what I'm trying to get at. If you give your full name at the beginning of the conversation, it's odd. I know some people like to introduce themselves with their first names. That's politeness 101, kind of. Introduce yourself by name, and that's fine. But don't introduce yourself as "I am Steve Stevenson, son of Steve." If it was important that you were the son of Steve, it would be in your signature. Your last name is also in your signature. Your title is also in your signature. You shouldn't be introducing yourself in this complicated and formal way. First name's enough. You know, organization's probably not necessary unless it's really relevant to the subject of the email. That stuff's in your signature anyway. So try to get your point across without the long, formal hear ye intro that is so often used. Consider yourself on the receiving end. It's probably going to just be glossed right over, right? You don't care. You're not going to read their last name and their honorariums and everything. So just try to think about yourself on the receiving end and what you're interested in. Just how do I address this person is what I care about, not what's their last name and the org that they're from and everything like that. I can get all that out of the signature if I'm interested. So instead of doing that, talk about what you are as soon as you can. If this is somebody that you haven't introduced yourself to, that's what really matters to them, right? So the people that you just sent the email to, they're going to be your points of contact for this program. Whoever emailed them, presumably you're going to be their point of contact. So introduce yourself as I'm your point of contact for such and such, not I'm the son of Steve Stevenson. It doesn't matter if you're the son of Steve Stevenson. That's not relevant to anybody. And I say where you're from, as in what organization or team, if it's not in your signature already, or if it's important because, like, for example, in this project, you want to tell them that you're from the team that's leading their project. You want to communicate that somehow. There's a lot of ways to say that. You could say, "Hey, I'm Steve Stevenson from John Carroll University, and I've been assigned to work on your thingamajig." But that's really boring and really long. It'd be much faster to say, "Hey, I'm Steve from the student team in charge of your such and such project." That's much faster and it gets the point across better. Or, "Hey, I'm your point of contact for such and such project from your team at John Carroll," if you really want to sneak the name of the institution in there. That makes it more active as well. So don't talk about your city of origin or whatever. Don't say that you're Steve from the kingdom of Stevia. That's irrelevant. Include that information in the intro that they need to know who you are and why you're addressing them. And make sure your intro is finished within a line or two at most, right? And that includes this next part, the why part. So that the first part, everything up to here, should probably be one line or two very short lines, two very short sentences, or one medium length sentence. And this next part is the why. Why did you send this email today? That's the cutting to the point bit. Do you want a meeting? Do you want to touch base? Do you want to introduce yourself? There's probably more to it beyond that, but it helps to tell them why you're contacting them today. So you want to introduce yourself. You want to see how they're doing. You want to get a status report, whatever it is. In this case, introducing yourself was the goal, and scheduling a meeting should have been the secondary goal, I think. So, when it comes to asking for info, so you're soliciting some information from the person you're sending stuff to. A temptation, because it's easy for you, is to ask for information in the negative. Hey, tell me what I don't know. If other people knew what you didn't know, that would be great. But broadly, most people don't think about you that much. They probably don't even remember what meetings you've been or haven't been unless they were immediately in the, like it was like 5 minutes ago or something. And even then, there's no guarantee they're going to read your email 5 minutes from now. So if you send something like, hey, can you send me the details I missed from that meeting I slept through? There are a lot of questions there for the recipient. What did you miss? What meeting? Which one did you sleep through? I have to know all that crap about you in order to know what you're asking of me. Whereas I could have sent something like, hey, can you send me the details from the meeting about widgets on Thursday afternoon? That would at least be better because I know specifically what you want. Or, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about your project? It always has that addendum. Even if you don't include it directly, it's implied, right? Can you tell me a little bit more about your project that I don't already know? I don't know what you know. I no idea what you know about the project. Besides, maybe in this case, they know that they sent you a one-page summary and they assume that you've read it for the project you're working on in senior design. But beyond that, people don't know what you know. And people definitely don't know what you don't know. So ask them specific details about the project, or just call for a meeting and you can work it out in a more nuanced way. But asking people to tell you what you don't know usually isn't going to work out. Add to that most people don't want to discuss any kind of complicated information by email in the first place. That's, again, not everybody. Some people are just better at communicating and writing, and that's fine. You can accommodate those people too. But generally, if the answer is longer than 3 lines, it's probably time to have some kind of meeting or discussion to talk about it further, especially in a project like you guys have now that's in its early stages. If you were to work that whole thing out by email, it would probably take you a lot of writing to do so. And there'd be a lot of confusion as well, because you'd be going back and forth, and there's a lot of ways to misinterpret the written word. The body language and other nuance is key to getting a good idea of what they're actually asking of you. I know a few of you have been offered tours of the respective facility or some kind of more in-depth meeting about the project. I encourage you to take them up on that if you haven't already. One of the big things in Agile programming, hopefully you learned in 270, is stories. That's something that some Agile programming proponents are big on. User stories. So what is the life of all the different stakeholders in your project? What's the user's life using your application supposed to be like? Before you start programming, hopefully you get an idea of what the user's life using your project is going to be like. And that's what we're going to do today in senior design. So something to think about till then. How about tell us a little bit more about your application. Careful what you wish for, right? You might get this back. Should I read the whole thing? Probably read it, right? Just, but by popular demand, I'm going to make a poll if I should read this whole thing. Should I read this entire lovely message? Yeah, be careful what you wish for when you ask for tell us a little bit more about, because those kinds of statements are open-ended. It could very well be that you get a lot more than you asked for. Looks like the yeses win. So could you tell us a little bit more about your application, Karen? Well, sure. You see, it's an application that allows cats to communicate over the internet. I want to take one cat and then another cat and then link them together so that one cat says something, the other cat can hear it. And when that cat says something, then the other cat also hears it. Oh, and it should also allow the cats to communicate with their owners, but only if their owners want to. Don't let the cats turn it on themselves. Also, I think that it should be free for the cats, but you can charge the owners probably. I'll just take a small fee out of that. Also needs to run on the Game Boy Color because that's the only system that my cat owns. Unless you can buy my cat a new Game Boy, like maybe the Game Boy Advanced or maybe the Switch, but that's expensive, so maybe just the Game Boy Advanced. Anyway, sorry for the wall of text. I'm sure you understand what you need to do. Just tie the two cat wires together so the cats can talk, and then just put that inside the Game Boy. Oh, and I also forgot it should remind the owners when it's the cat feeding time. We'll call it a cat notification. Okay, thank you very much. Karen, Chief Cat Officer. Catco Corporation LLC, a Catco Industries Corporation. Be careful what you wish for. Don't get too much. Be specific about what you want more info about, or you could very well end up with a lot of these walls of text that you need to reference repeatedly, and that's no fun for anybody. And also, if you're asked for a little more info about, don't be Karen here. Don't give them a wall of text. How about this question? Are there any particular details we need to know? This is tied in with similar questions like, is there anything else we need to know? Uh, is there any other information you'd like to share with us? Is there anything else important? What are the other important pieces of info I need? All these kinds of questions typically end up with no response because they're at the end of the email, generally speaking, and everybody's done reading by then. And then 6 months later, you find out it was supposed to run on the PS Vita in addition to the Game Boy Advance. That's actually the whole point of the project. One cat owns a Game Boy, the other owns a PS Vita. And obviously the whole point is for them to talk to one another. Are you kidding me? How are my cats supposed to talk? I don't have two Game Boys, you buffoon. So be careful about asking for negatives again. Are there any details or things we omitted? Is there anything that we've omitted? It's a really hard question, right? People are bad at synthesizing that kind of knowledge, so I don't expect them to do so, especially over quickie email. Is there anything we missed in that same vein? Let's think. No. 6 months later. So how about that PS Vita version? It's not done. No, no. Okay, so let's talk about some yeses and nos. If you're asking for info, what are some specific questions you could give? Hey, are you guys okay with a cyan background? My professor says we need one. This could happen. I could dictate that all the applications have to have a cyan background or they're not compliant with good usability. If it's not perfect cyan, you fail. Maybe. Now you have to ask the client. Is that okay? It's good. It's specific. The problem might be that not everybody knows what color cyan is. I would say if you're asking a question like this, include a picture of what the app looks like with a cyan background. Say it would look like this. Be as specific as you can. Don't make people guess what cyan is. In fact, if you ask a non-computer scientist, pull them off the street, ask them, what's cyan look like? They're going to give you a really different answer. Because most people think of cyan as like a seafoam green, not neon blue-ish. Right? That's not the conventional definition of cyan. Unless you work in the printer or tech space. Another nice question might be, do you guys have any Windows 7 computers you need this to work on? So if someone tells you they want a Windows application, that might be a real situation I think most of you face. I think most of you are writing Windows applications. Somebody just said cyan is disgusting in YouTube chat. They just failed the class. How dare they? It's the best color. If the client requests a Windows app, it's good to ask, what's the oldest version of Windows you've got that this is supposed to work on? But again, that's one of those negative questions, right? What's the oldest version of Windows you've got? Now they have to think. Dell? I don't know. We'll go back to talking to non-technical people later. But ask them if they have any Windows 7 computers. They might remember that. They might know that. Or they might ask someone and get back to you. That's a question that can be answered. Most organizations don't have a list of all of my computer's operating systems sorted by age. How many people are going to use this app at once? That could be important, depending on performance requirements and all that kind of thing. It's a specific question that they should be able to answer. But they might not still. They might say, oh, we're not sure. In that case, you should probably go different thresholds. Do you think 20 people will use this at once? Is it possible that 50 people might use this at the same time? Do you need it to be able to work if 50 people try to get on it at once? Is it okay if it only works for X number of people at the same time? Those kinds of capacity questions, if they don't have a specific answer, you need to start thinking about thresholds, drawing lines. Is 25 enough? Is 50 enough? Those are your performance requirements. Those are going to be important too. Let's look at a bad example of putting it all together. All right. Greetings. It says hello, but it should start with greetings. My name is Steve Stevenson, son of Steve from the kingdom of Stevia. My family was chosen by the Lord Steve to rule over Stevia for generations. As heir to the Steve throne, I am honor-bound to assist you in all your endeavors. I am currently assigned as the lead developer for the kingdom of Stevia. Let it be known that by royal decree of His Majesty, my father, Steve Stevenson, it is hereby declared that I shall be the lead developer on your project. Is there anything I need to know to work on your project, besides what I have already been told in my capacity as the lead developer of the Kingdom of Stevia? Good day, Steve Stevenson, son of Steve, Kingdom of Stevia. What are the many mistakes? Let's just point out a couple of the mistakes. So in either chat, what are some of the mistakes that Steve Stevenson did here? What could Steve Stevenson have done better? And I will show you Steve Stevenson's correction after we do a little discussion on it. What could Steve Stevenson have done better here? And what were his many mistakes? Steve Stevenson, heir to the throne of Stevia and lead developer for the kingdom of Stevia. Definitely a Pokemon intro, right, from chat. I am, my name is, etc. Plus all his different weird honorary titles that aren't relevant to this at all. It doesn't get to lead developer till way in. Talked about his hometown, someone said in chat. Yeah, his home kingdom, but yes, his hometown, where he's from. The kind of information that isn't really relevant to the discussion. Someone said rambling wall of text. Definitely. Even if this were a decent email, it would need more white space. Too hard to read all this info as one text box. Someone else said it's vague, asking for more information. Definitely. This is one of those examples where it's super vague. Is there anything I need to know besides what I've already been told? How do I know what you've been told? In my capacity as the lead developer of the Kingdom of Stevia, makes it even more ambiguous. What the heck does the lead developer of the Kingdom of Stevia know? What kind of info do I pass along to this person? Are they just technical details? Do I talk about the app with them? Who is this weird guy? So let's look at a better one. Hello, I've been assigned to the lead development role on your project. Let's set up a meeting to touch base, or reach out anytime if you have any questions. Steve Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer, Kingdom of Stevia. In this case, you're not sure if they're going to have a meeting, or if they want one. So it's fair not to offer any times. Almost comes off as rude in that case, if you're offering times before you know if they want one. So it's cool that he didn't offer some times right out the bat here. He offered them the opportunity to reach out anytime if they had questions, so to email them back. He says what he is and where he's from without being annoying about it. You actually have to look into the signature to find out who he is, which is fine, because, again, you could look at the signature. You know that he's the lead developer, you know where he comes from. It's much better than the previous one, certainly in length. And rather than asking the customer vague questions, we just sidestep that issue entirely by tabling that for a later time when we have a meeting with the customer. Here's another bad example. Hello, my name is Steve Stevenson, and I am the technical lead here at the Kingdom of Stevia. I am writing to you today because you requested a quote on our SteveSoft development package. Please reply to this message with more information regarding your software needs so I can better generate a quote in response to your inquiry. This is used as a mockery of the hyper-formality that some people tend to operate with, especially when they're early in their careers. Expressions like, I am writing to you today because, are about as unnecessary as anything. Yes, I am aware that you are writing to me on the day that you are writing to me. That could not possibly be more obvious. So I am writing to you today, I'm sending this email, I'm contacting you because, all kind of redundant, aren't they? Because obviously that's what you're doing. And then, of course, the other formalities, like indicating that they're from the Kingdom of Stevia when it wasn't necessarily required since it's already in their signature. And asking for the information in the reply directly is another of the bad things done here. So they want the customer to reply to this message with more info about their software needs. As a customer, my software needs are great and complicated and could not so easily be summarized in an email. So of course, I need to meet with you in order to talk about my software needs. Let's look at a better one. Hello, I'm Steve, Chief Technology Officer at the Kingdom of Stevia. This is a nice short example if you must give your name and organization. Just use your first name, your role, and the org quickly. It gets it across without taking up too much of the reader's time. You reached out to us for a quote on our SteveSoft development package. That brings us right to the point. Let's set up a meeting to discuss your business needs so I can more accurately quote you out. Again, in this case, they don't have a relationship yet, so they're asking the other person to accept or confirm that they would like to talk before they start inviting them to have a conversation. I don't think that's the case for any of you guys. There's already a relationship between you and the project that we're working on, the project leads that you're reaching out to. You already know them, or at least they're already aware of the situation, and they're comfortable having a meeting with you, so you can go straight to the scheduling. You could do it like this too if you prefer, if you think that's rude. I have no problem with you asking them first. However, when you start doing this in the professional world, if you're emailing people to get like a job interview or something like that, cold emails to people at different companies for something you might need, then I would set it up this way. Ask them if they want to have a meeting. Don't just start proposing times because that looks weird to everybody. So if you don't already have a relationship, you can do it this way. Last thing I wanted to look at today, we'll do this in more detail later. I think it's a whole week of our syllabuses for this, but let's do some real high-level ones about talking to people who are not developers. What language do you want? English? I like English. I guess we should have a Spanish version? People don't know languages. Most computer scientists don't even know that many languages. Like, name 10. There's probably hundreds out there. Try to name 10. It's tough, right? Let's see, there's C, and C++, and C sharp, and a lot of other ones that start with C. All right. How about what technology are you using? So broad. It's like, especially to non-technical people, everything around the office is technology. Well, I have a printer, I think. It's a Dell. I think it says Dell on it. It says that right in the middle of my screen. Yeah. And ask non-developers ambiguous questions about their technology. They don't know what you mean. What can we use to store our data? Well, I asked IT, and they say that we can share a Google Doc. Yeah, that works. Not quite a server, though, is it? Not quite what you were asking for. So be careful about asking those types of questions. Those will be the points that it's very difficult to work out. You're going to have to come up with a very finessed way to broach the idea of how do you want to store the customer's data? Are you going to build them a server, manage them a server, rent some cloud space? What are you going to do? I think all of your projects, maybe all but the Runestone project, require some kind of remote server setup. So some of the yeses in place of those questions, if you're curious about what your software is going to be running on, what kind of devices are you going to be running this on? Laptops, phones? Do you know if anyone has a Mac? Whether or not you have to support a Mac version adds a lot to your workload, so let the customer know. It would be a lot easier if we just dropped the operating system that practically nobody supports anyway, although Mac support is certainly on the rise. I'm just making fun of Mac people, but a lot of software runs on one or the other, and certainly if they have phones, then you're adding Android and iOS into the mix. That can be even harder. However, if they're running it on laptops and phones and their MacBooks and iPhones, then it's actually easier to make it Mac only, because there's a lot better compatibility between iPhone and Mac than between Android and Windows, or Windows and the pretty much non-existent today Windows Phone. You can develop just once for iPhone and Mac, depending on what it is. How about for that data storage question? Well, one way to approach it with finesse is to summarize the costs, because that's all your customer really cares about. Costs, reliability, ownership, legal compliance. Those are the kinds of issues that they're thinking about. So you can start with costs. We'd like to store your data on Azure. It's going to cost you this much a month. We could also store it on site. That would be a good point for the people who are really worried about legal compatibility and that kind of thing. If it's on their property in their office, then they have total ownership and control over it. But someone will have to administer it later. We can help set that up and train you as well. So make sure that they realize that whatever this weird sounding thing is, Azure or setting it up in their site, they're not going to be totally on their own on this. It's not going to be like, what do I do with this again? How do I do this? Make sure you let them know that they're going to be getting help with this. All right, so that's it for the... Oh, no, okay, I have a couple more examples. Sorry, let me do these too. We think that such and such service would be your best bet because it'll run faster and you won't lose your data if it goes down. So those are selling points that the customer might want. It costs you this much a month, or we can do this if you don't want to pay a monthly fee instead. Those are pros and cons in ways that even non-technical users should be able to understand. Hey, we'd be able to finish a few weeks ahead of schedule if we don't have to support Mac. Is it okay if the application only works on Windows? Specific and clear question. Now they can figure out, does anybody actually need this on Mac? Okay, more on this later. All right, so for the rest of class, we are going to be looking at the emails that you've already written. I'm going to upload an assignment to Canvas here in a second. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, and I'm going to just describe it first here. So you're going to take the email that you just sent out in 470. You can include the response as well, just to see where you went wrong. If you haven't gotten a response yet, that's fine. But what you're going to do is you're going to take that email you sent out as a group in 470, and you're going to modify it personally until you're happy with it. So since all of you worked on it, feel free to copy that whole email or any of the drafts of it. You don't have to worry about plagiarism for copying any of the previous drafts of it that you already wrote as a group. If you're happy with the way it is, just turn it in as is. That's fine. But try to generate a version of your own if you're not happy with how it is. And we're going to do that for about 10 to 15 minutes. After that, I'm going to make a final call in Discord in the general chat that it's time for you to turn in your submissions. And then we're going to split up into your senior design groups. You're going to pair off with another group, and you are going to try to pick the best of the versions that the other group came up with. Okay, and describe why you think it's the best, why you think the others are suboptimal. And then, if we have time, we'll come together as a class and vote for the best overall email. And hopefully, that person can get a little bit of extra credit on top of their obvious boost to their pride from having the best of the best. Okay, so that should be live now. You should see that under your assignments and try to get something in the next 10 or 15 minutes. So we'll say like 4:25 or so will be the cutoff. And then I will see you guys on Discord for the follow-up. Get ready to pair off into your groups there on the 475 Discord. All right, that's it for the stream for today. See you guys on Discord in a bit.